So thank you all so much for tuning in today. I'm really excited to dive into this incredible call together. First, a bit of background information on our host. Arielle helps visionary women clarify their message and connect with their tribe so they can grow their business and scale their impact. She executes this as a brand and messaging coach by using her specialized insights to see how the beautiful ideas of her clients can be combined into one powerful message. Arielle is committed to teaching women how to talk about what they do in a way that speaks to their ideal audience's heart, which is a process that ultimately leads them to learning a thing or two about themselves as well. And by enabling others to better understand themselves, Arielle sets them up to take action towards what most aligns with who they truly are. So thank you so much, Arielle, for taking the time to host this call. We know how valuable your time is, and we can't wait to learn from you today.
Can I steal that from you? I didn't write that. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a refreshed way of saying I like it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, should I share my screen now?
Go for it.
Cool. Okay, can you guys see this? Sweet. Okay, hello. My name is Arielle, like Hannah just told you, and I'm super excited to be here with all you dreamy humans. So the goal of this webinar is essentially to give you the building blocks and the foundational elements of what you need to be thinking about when it comes to your brand, so you can all be brand building queens in your own right. Also, Hannah shared some questions with me that you guys sent through earlier. I think a bunch of them will be covered in this session, but there's a few I noticed that I'm not hitting on directly, so I'm going to try to answer those at the end. And also, if you have questions like while I'm going through stuff, just drop them in the chat and Hannah will read them to me. And I'll also check in and see if you guys have questions. So let's get started. So here's the truth, right? Like whether you like it or not, your brand already exists. It's in every place you show up online or don't, in person as well. And how you present yourself in person, the way your vision, message, stories, all that stuff, how it makes people really feel. And for a lot of us, brand building can feel really overwhelming, right? There's so many platforms, there's all these other people doing it, like there's all this stuff and it's super overwhelming. So a question for all of you that I have, and feel free to drop your answers in the chat if you feel like it, but what's getting you tripped up right now about building your brand? What feels overwhelming or daunting, or you're just like, screw this? If you guys don't want to share, that's okay, I can move on. Oh, let's see one. Anna, I see one flashing.
Yes, so Trish says, not knowing where to start and what to specifically focus on.
Cool. I'm gonna try to help you. Great.
And Antoinette says same as Trish.
Perfect.
Marissa says how to capture the full story concisely and meaningfully. Antoinette says lots of ideas and not sure how to narrow in.
Perfect. Okay, great. So like all of you just mentioned, like not knowing where to focus, how to narrow in, all this stuff. The real problem in getting like started with your brand and feeling all this overwhelm is it all boils down to a lack of clarity, like not knowing like, what am I doing? Who's this for? How do I want to show up? And being really clear on that, so then when you do carve out time to create things, you know why you're creating them and what those things are supposed to do for you, your brand, your business, whatever it is. So let me ask you this. What do you want to be known for? And I want you to think about this question. We'll come back to it at the end. But if you're feeling stumped right now, some ideas to get the wheels turning might be, is there a specific niche in an industry you want to be known for? Do you want to be known for the way you work or the type of work you deliver, for example. Do you want to be known for the way you make people feel? Like that can be something you're known for. Anything really goes here. And once you know the answer to this question, right? Like once you know what you want to be known for, oh, oops, Siri's talking to me. See, there goes off my new Apple headphones are going crazy, sorry. Yeah, so once you know the answer to this question, you can start to take ownership of your brand. And what I mean by that is when you know what you want to be known for, you can make sure people perceive the real you and all that you stand for and all that you want to be known for, rather than kind of letting them take a guess or make their own assumptions, right? Because if you're not crafting your brand and working on how you want people to perceive it, they're just going to look you up and take away whatever they take away. And what I also really want you to know is that what we're going to cover today, like everyone can do it. You do not need to be like Gary Vee, Marie Forleo, Richard Branson, like any of these people. And you don't need to be everywhere on every social platform talking to everyone and posting a blog post every day and all this different type of stuff. You don't need to do any of that. This is all within your grasp. And you can do this with a full-time job or whatever your business, whatever you're doing. So a little bit more about me. Who am I? How did I get here? I kicked off my career in marketing and tech by launching a social media app in 2015. It got featured in Adweek, which I was super pumped about, but it had zero revenue model, so it failed. And then I ended up working at a bunch of different startups in San Francisco and New York, but started to feel really burned out. So I quit, and I knew I wanted to empower and support and uplift women. So I dove into coaching, and I married the skills I had learned working in startups to launch my coaching business. And now I help entrepreneurial women communicate what they have to offer powerfully, make decisions with confidence, and go from ideas to action, and really help them hone in on their message and positioning and how to connect with clients and customers. So, okay, enough about me. Here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to dive into how to clarify your vision and purpose, which is number one when it comes to building your brand. Clarify your audience and the problem you solve for them, how to create your story and the values your brand or business is built on, understand your point of difference in the market and how you can captivate your audience, and also tapping into your unique voice and how to connect with your tribe, and honestly, how to get started before you're ready. So like I mentioned, I've married my learnings from the startup world with what I've learned in the coaching world and also in the online business world. And I'm going to be taking you through the steps I actually take my own clients through. So feel free to take out a notepad, pen and paper, whatever you need to jot down some notes, because we're going to cover a lot of like foundational elements that I think you'll want to refer back to. Also, this session is recorded, and I'm sure Hannah will also send it to you if you just want to listen to a replay. And yeah, as a reminder to quell any concerns, all of these pieces we're going to cover today, you can start acting on them today. You don't need to be a marketing guru, a social media expert, or any of that. You can apply all of this and get started right now. So let's dive in. Boom. Okay, so the only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. So let's talk about your vision. So the first piece to building your brand is getting really clear on your vision for your brand and your business. And there are three main questions you really need to clarify in order to get to the root of your vision. So what do you, oh my gosh, sorry guys, Siri's like, so what do you do? To get the wheels turning, maybe you strategize, you coach, you teach, you lead, you design, you educate. Like think of the verbs that best describe what it is you do. Now let's take it a step further, right? Like who do you do it for? So who are you seeking to help or influence? Who is the target audience? Maybe they are millennial women, mothers, entrepreneurs, designers, freelancers, startups, like whoever it is, the audience that you're seeking to help serve or influence. And the final step, like what value do you provide? So what do people walk away with after interacting with your brand and business, whatever it is? What has changed for them? what do you help them accomplish? Oh, I see some questions popping up, but now they're gone and I can't see them.
Yeah, we do you have can you see the chat at the bottom? Like, can you click on it?
Oh, here we go. Okay. Ditto 2. What if you do more than one thing? Does it have to be one thing you do? Thanks for asking that. And so are you talking about like in your business, or if you're like a professional and you do more than one thing?
Yeah, exactly. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you perfect.
Working from home day, so you don't need to see me. But, yeah, so like I don't think that I could narrow it when you gave those examples of like I educate, I coach. I don't know that I could narrow it down to just one of those.
Okay. And you're saying that because like you're a professional and you have like a full-time job, but you also do these other things and you're having a hard time kind of like creating something that encapsulates everything you do.
Yes, that's like 99% spot on. But I'm not trying to differentiate between my like, real job and my side hustle. The side hustle.
Yeah, hear you. Okay.
In that, I do coaching and education and online resources, right? So it's
Gotcha. So I think you can still use this framework. I've actually used this framework with people who are in the same position as you. But what I would encourage you to do then is looking at, you do several things in your life, right? Like most people do. You're a multifaceted woman. But looking at the things you do across your life and asking yourself at a higher level, like what are the common themes that percolate into everything that I do, even if like the job or the thing that you're doing is different. So maybe it's like connecting or like helping to create a more seamless process. Like I'm just making stuff up now, but you're going to see common threads or theme that you bring to your work. It's like your secret sauce almost, that no matter what you're doing, this is the thing that kind of connects all of that. You can try, and I'll get to this in a second. So you can try breaking this down into the 3 questions that I've shown. But another thing that we'll talk about is this kind of vision statement that we're going to get to next takes kind of a lot of iteration and process and tweaking for it to feel right. And we'll get to that. But I hope that answers your question sort of right now. Let's see. Great. Okay, cool. Moving on. So, like I was just talking about that vision statement, that value proposition. So once you've answered these 3 questions, I want you guys to try to tie it all together into a tight sentence. And yeah, think of this as like a vision statement and your value proposition. And don't get discouraged if you can't get this right the first time. These things take iteration and tweaking. I personally have tweaked mine a bunch, and I've sat in front of a computer screen myself and been like, what do I say? So it's normal. Right now, I just want you guys to start getting, the point is to get the wheels turning so you can start that iterative process. And it may very well change over time, right? Like as you learn more about yourself, your audience, how you want it, you get more clear of like, this is how I want to show up in the world, it's going to change. So you don't need to have it perfect right now and be married to it, but getting like a V1 of this done is going to help you get started in terms of how you want to position yourself in the market, which will help you focus and narrow how the content you create, where you write guest posts, what you speak on, and this type of stuff, if that's important for you. Great. So he who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow, Friedrich Nietzsche. We're all busy. Things get hard. Everything in life is competing for our attention, right? So we need to be really clear on why we're doing what we're doing. And we need to get to the heart of our why and our purpose. And I'm sure if you've read anything on branding or read a blog post, you've seen like purpose, mission, you've seen all this stuff. Like everyone talks about it. It's really important. All strong brands have a clear purpose. And when you dig into your why and why you do what you do, it'll not only be eye-opening for you, but it'll also be evident to your tribe or audience as well. So some questions to think about are, why do you do what you do? What's the purpose behind it? What's your deepest why? Why is this work important to you? What changes in the world because of what you do? And if you've done a good job of getting to the root of your why, that purpose will ooze through everything you share online and offline, which makes you really authentic and magnetic to your audience. And it also keeps you going on those hard days. So something to keep in mind that I want to highlight here, because I've seen people make this mistake, is you need to be aware of how your purpose ties back into your original vision. In fact, your purpose needs to be rooted in your vision. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. So if, let's say you're a marketing consultant and you start like a marketing consulting business, and you've come up with your value proposition like we just did before, what you do, who you do it for, and the value you provide. And now it's time to come up with your purpose. And you're like, why did I start this business? And you're like, I didn't want to work for someone else. I want to work for myself. That's why you started the business. That might be true, right? You might want to work for yourself, and that might be why you started your business. But that purpose is not rooted in your value proposition, and that purpose isn't empathetic such that it reflects like how you help people and why you want to help people. So I would encourage you, if something like that comes up, an answer for you, keep digging to why you do the work you do and how that can help your customers. So it might be then your purpose, well, I really care about helping businesses tell their stories and connect with people. And another example would be, let's say your purpose was like, I don't want to work for someone else. I want to work for myself. Maybe that makes sense if your business is about, or your brand is about helping people like quit their 9-to-5, then it might kind of make sense because your business is rooted in that, and that's what you're helping people do. But even then, you want to go deeper, because why that purpose isn't that meaningful. You would then ask yourself, okay, well, why did I want to work for myself? Why was that important to me? And you kind of keep digging until you get to like this root answer where you're like, oh. So that's what I want to encourage you guys to do. Any questions? Just pop them in the chat if anything is unclear. Cool. So now we'll talk about audiences. So when you're building your brand, you need to know your audience. You're not here to speak to or serve everyone, and I'm sure you've heard this a million times, but if you try to be everything to everyone, you're going to be nothing to no one. So don't be afraid to get specific. Who is it, like ask yourself, who is it that I actually want to speak to or influence? And some questions to think about when honing in on your audience are, what problem do you solve for them? So what beliefs do they have about their problem? And I want to give an example about this. Like, what do I mean by what beliefs do they have about their problem? So I'll give you an example in my business. So I have a coaching business. I coach women entrepreneurs. I help them with like their messaging and their storytelling. So if a customer of mine, someone in my audience, believes that she might have worked with a coach before, or she might have taken a branding course, or she might have like done all these things to try and solve her problem, which is, branding and messaging, and she wasn't able to solve it. And so even though she has this problem, she believes that it can't be solved, or that she's tried all these things and it doesn't work. And so me, as like someone who's trying to position myself to serve her, I need to be aware that she holds that belief about her problem, and I need to speak to that belief in my content, in my emails, and all these different type of things. So that's what I mean when I say, what beliefs do they have about their problem? What does your audience value and believe about themselves, right? Like, what are they like? Do they consider themselves like environmentalists? Are they hipsters? Like all these different things. You want to be aware of how they view themselves. And another thing that's really important is knowing what your audience's hell is. And by that, I just mean, what are they trying to move away from? And similarly, what's their heaven? What are they trying to move towards, right? So whether you're a thought leader or a business or whatever it is, you're trying to offer a solution or provide something to someone, right? So if their hell is over here and their heaven's over here, Like you need to know what those two things are, and then your content and what you do is the middle gap that moves them over there. And so that also helps you narrow, what am I saying? Who am I talking to? Like, what do they need to hear from me? How am I going to move them forward? Knowing that stuff helps you kind of narrow your focus. So do you know what their biggest pain points are? Understanding what keeps your audience up at night will guide you to what you share and create. And speaking to those pain points will help you connect with them, build trust, and position you as someone who can solve their problems, or at the very least, someone they should follow, keep an eye on, all those things. Any questions? Cool. So now let's talk about your brand values or your core values, however you want to say them. So pinpoint and define your values. So your values are what you stand for no matter what, right? Like think of your brand values as the themes that guide your life, your career, your business, but also the elements that will shape your content. And I'll get to that in a little bit, but your values come through in the things you write and share with your audience. And that's important because your tribe, your audience, will either share or believe in your core values, which leads to trust, right? So if they share the core values you have or believe in the core values you have, they're going to trust you, and trust is foundational to building a strong brand. So what does this all mean? So think about 3 to 5 values that guide your decisions, your actions, and the way you interact with the world. And I want you to think about the values that you live by and abide by. And once you come up with your values, define what each of them mean to you. And then write an example of how you lived by or continue to live by those values, so that you know in your heart of hearts what these values mean to you, and how you authentically live by them. Having clarity on this will also really inspire the content you create and the stories you share. And why do I say like define what the value means to you? So I have, I might have a value, let's say I value connection. That's a core value of mine. How I define connection for me might be very different than how someone else defines it. And I want to be really clear on, for myself, like, what does this mean to me and how do I live by it? So that I can look at it at a high level. Like I have mine written down in a Google Doc and be really clear on, these are the things I stand for. This is stuff I want to be really evident and come through in all the content I create. Podcasts I go on, whatever I do, I want this to come through because that's helping people get a sense for who I am and if we have shared values or not. And yeah, to the last point I made, like having clarity on this will also really inspire your content and the stories you decide to share. So for example, my values are alignment, enjoyment, fulfillment, connection, and peace. So in all the content I share, emails I send, videos I create, Instagram posts, like all of these different things, each piece of content touches on at least one of these values in some way, shape, or form. And, on days where I'm feeling uninspired, I can literally just go look at this spreadsheet I have in Google that has like my values mapped out with the definition and examples of like how I live by them. And I can look at that and be like, like what story can I tell today about connection? Or what story can I tell today to my audience about alignment that can tie back into my business, but also serve my audience? And I think that for a lot of us, like coming up with the content is the hard part. Like, oh, I don't know what to say today. But if you have like a little map for yourself of like, these are the values I want to come through in my content no matter what, you can look at that and be like, oh, I have a story to tell about connection. And obviously you want to weave it back into like something about your brand or your business, but it helps like spark ideas, especially when you're feeling like uninspired and all those different things. I see a question. I'm just going to check it quick. Would you be willing to show us what your spreadsheet looks like or share a template version? Yes, I'll actually, once this is over, remind me, I'll do a screen share of my core values so you guys can see it. Is that helpful? It's like a big spreadsheet. I'm happy to share it with you guys. I'll do that. Great. Cool. Okay, so now on to one of the most important parts, your story. So your story is uncovering your journey to now. When we are clear on our story, what's happened to us, what's changed us, what's made us, and the events that led us to our career or business and why, we're able to differentiate ourselves in the market, build our tribe, and be more memorable. Plus, humans have a really hard time remembering facts, figures, even names. Like I'm really bad with that, but we're wired to remember stories. And there's a lot of competition out there, but no one, even if someone has the same skills, the same pedigree, like the same, all that stuff, they do not have the exact same story you have with the lessons you've acquired, with the worldview you have. And so you need to capitalize on that. So some questions to think about in terms of your story are, what's been the making of you, right? Like, how did you get into your career or business? Who or what influenced you? What challenges did you overcome? How did you pull through? What was the outcome? So, and I want you guys to think about it this way, like if you're guest posting, speaking, getting interviewed on a podcast, like all these different things, people are going to ask you, so what's your story, right? Like they're going to ask you. And if it's just a checklist of your resume, number one, it's not that memorable and it's a little bit dull, but also it doesn't do you justice. Like you are more than like a series of events on like a resume. So getting clear on your story and how it relates to your career or business is something that, you know, you can use on your about page, your website. You can condense it into shorter blurbs for bios, pitches, like all of these different scenarios. And I actually want to touch on this. It's a little bit different if you have a business and want to tell your business's brand story in a way that captivates your audience, right? That's a story such that it moves your audience to purchase. I'm not going to go into detail here about that, but what I will say is essentially your customer in your business's brand story, your customer needs to be the hero and your business is the guide, right? Who helps them find success. And so writing descriptions of how your company came to be, you know, if you just write a description of like, this is when we were founded and this is how we got started and this is why we do what we do, like that's not really compelling. You need to take prospects through a proper story arc, which is number one, like set the circumstance, like number two, rising action. So like there was a circumstance, then something was happening, you know, resistance was building, something was going on. And then number three, climax. So there was a big, you know, moment where, you know, if you have a business, you're like, I'm starting this business, or something else happened. It was a climactic moment. Four, falling action. So like, okay, how you figured things out, how you made it work, right? And then five is just outcome, like the business you have today, how you got here, whatever it is. And your audience needs to see themselves in your story. If they see themselves in your story, they're gonna be like, oh my God, this person, this business gets it. This is for me. They're talking about me. I've had the same experience. So yeah, I'm not gonna go into too much detail about that, but if you need help or want more details about this, just ping me, email me after the call, and I'm happy to hop on a call with you and help you with that. If you have, you know, you wanna improve something on your website, you feel like your story's a little bit all over the place, I'm happy to give you some quick feedback. But the rest of this kind of presentation is mostly focused on like, I'd say more personal brand, or if you have a service-based business. So I just want to touch on that. And yeah, remember people might not have, they might have the same hard skills as you, but they don't have the exact same story. Oh, hold on, one question here. I agree, stories vary. Yes. Thanks, Michelle. Cool, so one of the most important parts now is your point of difference. So people get freaked out with point of difference. They're like, so many people are already doing this, or there are tons of businesses that are like this. I don't know how I'm different. So I used to be a product marketer at several startups, and I used to do a lot of like competitive analysis. When it comes to, you know, figuring out what your point of difference is for your brand. I don't think you guys need to go too deep in the weeds. I actually think you can keep it pretty high level, and that's going to serve you a lot better. So don't get overwhelmed with thinking you need to go like pull up 30 people or businesses that are doing like the exact similar stuff to you. What I would suggest is focus on the high level stuff when it comes to seeing who else is playing in your field of business, and create a table for yourself. I've used GIFs here, but essentially you can create like one table on the left that says like other players and one table on the right that says like you or your business. You can throw it in a Google Doc. You keep it super simple, and start doing some like light research, let's call it. Light research to see who else is playing in your field of business, who is doing similar work to you. Don't overthink it, just like start lightly researching. And once you start doing that, like ask yourself, like, you know, you maybe come up with a few different people or businesses, like what stands out to you about them, these other players? What do you like? What don't you like? Add everything that kind of stands out to you about them to the column on the left, and everything, you know, initial intuitive, like, you know, ideas you have of how you're different, add them to the column on the right. And like, how are you different? You know, there are a million ways that could make you different. It could be your niche. It could be like your approach. So the way you approach solving a specific problem that might be different from someone else. So even if you solve the same problem as someone else, the way you solve it could be different. The actual problem you solve could be different. The audience you serve could be different. So you could be solving the same problem, but you know, you do it for women and someone else does it for men, or a different age group, right? It could be your unique experience that makes you different. So I don't know, maybe you have like a background in like, you know, working at a great company, or maybe you have some unique experiences that make you uniquely qualified for this type of stuff that you haven't seen other people. So leveraging your experience, which also plays into your story, can be a big differentiating factor. Another thing that could differentiate you is just like your tone, right? Like your brand voice, the way you write content. Like I'm sure there's so many people on LinkedIn and Instagram that you kind of follow, and like, yeah, you follow them because they have insightful content, but you just like the way they speak or the way they write. It's like personable. There's something about it. That's a differentiating factor. So if you're a spunky writer, or if you like to curse, or if you're very like empathetic, these are all things that could also differentiate you in your content and make you stand out. And again, like how you make people feel. So some people, their brands are more like tough love. Other people are more like nurturing, like figuring out like what's your style and what's your personality. Those are all things that differentiate you. And yeah, I can't emphasize this enough. Like figure out what makes you you, and become more of that. Like crank it up, embody it, step into it. No one else is exactly like you. It's one of the most important, if not the best, competitive advantages you have. And don't get swayed by what other people are doing or how they're doing it. Really tune into like what makes you you, and do it your way. Also, you know, as soon as you start building up your brand, you start posting more content, you start doing more things, like you inevitably get more visibility, and you might get people not liking you or not getting you. And there will always be people who don't like you and who don't get you, but there will always be people who admire you. And I think when we're willing to say things that might be like taboo or controversial, or really say what we think, we end up attracting the people who are diehard fans, and also repelling the people who want like nothing to do with that perspective or opinion. And that's great, because if people don't like you, and there's people that do really like you, it's a good like litmus test to see, am I like saying something that people care about? Am I saying and doing stuff that like people either agree with or disagree with? So actually, if you're getting some haters, I think it's kind of good. And yeah, if you look at the people you follow and admire, I'm sure they, you know, they move to the beat of their own drum. They say what they think, and you love them for it. And so that's what I want to encourage you guys to do. So again, yeah, my suggestion would be like throw up, you know, a simple table in a Google Doc if you want to do it in a spreadsheet, and just start keeping like a light track of like who else is playing in your field of business and how you think you might be different from them. And so from that, let's move on to key messages. So think of your key messages as the things you want to shout from the rooftops. I think that's the easiest way. People get really confused, like, what's my key message? Like, I don't know. This is, I think, the easiest way to remember it. Like, what things do you wish people would get or understand, ideas you think need to be discussed, messages you want to repeat over and over again in your content, online, offline, to your audience. So these might be like deep-rooted beliefs, misconceptions, you know, you get the drift, like stuff you're like, or it might be, you know, conversations that you want to be having that you don't see happening online. And you're like, why aren't people talking about this? That might be like that thing that this might be the key message. And a lot of us get worried about sounding repetitive, right? But the thing is, people are so busy and overwhelmed with content and their own shit that they need to read and see something at least 7 times for it to resonate. So think about your key messages and how you might frame them in different stories, in different formats, in different contexts. So let's say you might have like 5 key messages, but there are a million ways to repurpose those key messages through different stories that you share. Different ways you share it. So video versus like written, email versus blog. Like there's all these different ways that you can kind of get that weave that message in different ways. So you're repeating it over and over again. And actually, it's good to be repetitive because what the whole point in having a brand, right, is so you're recognizable. And if you keep repeating certain messages, you start to get recognized for like, oh, this is like, yeah, this is a view Arielle has, for example. And they start to recognize like a pattern in your point of view, in your voice, and that's actually good. So you want to be repetitive. Don't shy away from saying the same thing in a different way or through a different story on a different platform. Like you need actually to be doing that to like hammer home what you want to be known for. So don't be fearful around that. Okay, so yes, at the beginning of the webinar, I asked you, what do you want to be known for? And by now you might have some ideas, but it's totally normal and okay if you don't yet. But here's that same question framed in a different way. When someone intros you to a crowd of people, what do they say? When someone describes, when someone describes you, your work, or your business, what do they say? How do you want to be remembered? And so I think for this open-ended question, if you've been struggling with that, like what is my vision? Like what do I want to be known for? And that's kind of stopping you from kind of figuring out how do I want to show up in the world. This might be something you journal on over the holidays, or you brainstorm, you know, you let yourself free write and see like what comes up for you. And I think once you get more clear on this, like how do you want to be remembered? I think it almost allows your subconscious mind to actually let out what it is you want to be known for, rather than like your logical mind who's like, well, you're good at this and you've done this, so this is what you should do. Cool. So I hope you found this educational. If you'd like to dig in more, I have a free guide / workbook to help you go deeper. It's essentially like everything we covered in this webinar, but it's in a Google Doc that you can customize for yourself. The link to access it is here, and I can see, I can also put it in the chat, I think. 1 second. If I can find the chat. Cool. And so yeah, you guys have that if you want it. And also I hang out on Instagram a lot if you guys want to be friends on there. say hi. I'm also like on LinkedIn and email and in obviously the Dreamers and Doers Facebook group a lot. But if you have any questions about this, if you want like me to review your website or help, take a look at something, like I'm happy to do that. I love this community. It's been so meaningful to me to have like other women, especially since I'm working alone most of the time. So does anyone have any pressing questions right now? Otherwise, there's some questions you guys sent through before, like probably a couple of weeks ago or something to Hannah that I wrote down because I don't think I covered. There's a few that I didn't cover in here that I want to touch on. So let's see. I'm gonna exit screen share for a second. So one of the questions I got was, how do I build my personal brand within that of my company? So again, I would figure out for this person, like I didn't talk specifically on this, but again, figuring out like, what do you want to be known for? And then taking on projects that align with that instead of like pigeonholing yourself into what you've already done. Another question I got that was a really good question was brand positioning for a two-sided marketplace. So, and this I found was especially interesting because I've worked at a startup that had a two-sided marketplace, and it was confusing sometimes. It's like, how do we talk to both of these people with very different needs? And what I would encourage you to do, if this was your question, was you have your two-sided marketplace, two different sides. The customer on each side, do your messaging, like the pain points, what keeps them up at night, the solution they're looking for, like the hell and the heaven, like do that separately for each side of the marketplace. So it's clear and specific and not watered down. And then looking at those two things, like each sides of the marketplace, look at it from like a higher level, holistic level, and see how you can, what words, what sentences, what kind of messages you can say that make sense for both on top of that. So it's kind of like building from the ground up. You do both sides, personas on each side, and then looking at that, you can figure out, okay, like I can say this at a higher level, and that might be something you put on your website, but then when you're trying to sell to these different sides of your marketplace, you have like copy that then speaks specifically to this persona and copy and messaging that speaks more deeply to this persona. But when someone lands on your website, they can see holistically like what you guys do. Let's see what else. So yeah, I think those were the two big questions that I didn't. Oh, clarity around personal branding versus company branding. So that was a question that came in. That's a great question. It depends. Like if you're a service-based business like me, for example, like your personal brand is kind of your company brand. If you have like a product, if you're like a startup founder, or you're building a product or a service where like the business, like, yeah, you're the CEO, but the business isn't about you. I would say in the early days of your business, like even if the business isn't about you, in the early days, like it is about you, because people want to know, first of all, like, why did you start this? Why are you the woman for the job? Like what experience led you to realize that like this was a problem in the market, and what makes you think you know how to solve it? So I think in the beginning, it's actually kind of closer together. And the more you grow, the thing with company branding versus personal branding is, if that was a kind of a situation for you, the more you grow, you can keep tweaking your story. Like your brand is ever evolving. You guys are going to tweak and pivot and reposition so many times. So don't get so attached to any one thing. The more you test in the market, the more you're going to refine and learn more. And if your company is more of a product, that's kind of the thing I was talking more before, like your brand story. Like if you're talking about how do I differentiate between like a founder story versus like a brand story. A brand story is kind of like those 5 C's I took you through before, which again, if you have more questions, like feel free to just email me. I'm happy to go through that and like help you make sure that's coming through on your website or whatever other copy you want. But yeah, those were all the questions. And unless there's any more, let's see, Antoinette, what's the magic in making all the bullet points coming together into a powerful story? For example, WeWork has an inspiring brand. Yes, if we ignore the bad stuff. And I'm not sure how something like that comes together. So the bullet points, like in a story, Antoinette, what bullet points?
Yeah, like all the questions that you walked us through.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I've been able to answer them.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm like, where's the magic in all of it?
Right.
Gelling?
So yeah, the magic is, so first of all, coming up with your story, you're not going to get it in one shot. Like, it takes lots of iteration, but the things you need to keep in mind is you've answered those questions. And if you've answered those questions, you already have a sense of like, okay, this was the circumstance or the situation. This is kind of, so 1, circumstance, 2, rising action. So you were in a situation and then stuff started happening. Stuff changed, things got hard, like there was resistance somewhere, the rising action that led to 3, climax, which is something, shit hit the fan, something happened, and it was like a breaking point. And then there's a falling action where you kind of figure things out, like, this is how I made it happen, here's how we overcame the challenge. And then number 5, like, conclusion, like what happened today. And so that's kind of the story arc that you need to keep in mind. And those questions, like I gave in the presentation, might be what helped pull out, like, what was the climax? Like, what did make me start my business? Or where was I before I started this business? And like, what made me feel like I needed to start it? Or, you know, how did I pull through? What challenges did I overcome and how I pulled through? That question might relate to like falling action. How did I overcome whatever difficulties I encountered when I found this problem? Is that more helpful? I'll send you, I have your email, so I'll send you an email, maybe summing it up so it's more clear for you. Cool. And would you be willing to show us what oh yeah, the spreadsheets. Okay, let me pull up. You guys want to see my value spreadsheet? I'll put it in here, 1 second. Values. Okay. All right. So how should I share? Okay, I'm gonna make this, I guess, visible. I'm dropping it in here, but I'll let whoever wants to see it ask to request access, because it's actually like, I don't know, there might be personal stuff in here. So I don't know, I wasn't planning to share it. So if you guys care about seeing how I mapped out core values, just click on that and request access and I'll give it to you. I think that's the best way to do it. Is that okay with everyone? I don't actually know.
Thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah.
If
Cool.
you want to, you can always you could delete all your information if you wanted to and make a copy.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that and then should I send it to you to send it to people?
Yeah, you can send it to me and then I can include it in the offers post, and then that way if anyone wants it, they can just
Yeah, okay, cool, I'll do that.
Yeah, that way you don't have to worry about, anything.
Yeah, I actually don't know what's in here. Cool. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. I'll show. Yeah, I'll jump on that right after this, Anna, and I'll let you see the format.
Thank you so much for doing that. That'll be super helpful.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if that's it, thank you guys for showing up live. It was so nice to get to talk to all of you. I hope it was helpful.
Thank you so much for hosting. This was incredible. This is going to be such a valuable resource. Thank you for everything, and thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day.
Yeah, and happy holidays, everyone, if we don't
Yes. Safe travels if anyone's going in there. Take rest.
Yes.
Have fun with family. And
Yes.
we'll see you guys soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.